You're listening to episode 12 of the Denoise podcast. If you don't know by now, we're the Blender heads at CG Cookie, here to discuss all things pertaining to computer graphics and its premier open source software, Blender. Today we're talking to a real up-and-comer to the Blender scene, a little-known Australian fellow named Andrew Price. I'm being silly. We all know Andrew. He's the legendary Blender Guru himself, founder of Polygon.com, author of the iconic donut tutorial. Jonathan Lampel and I caught up with Mr. Price at BCON LA, where we found ourselves discussing things like origins, teaching and learning Blender, successes and failures, moving to the USA, and what's on the horizon for Blender Guru and Poliigon. Andrew Price, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This is an honor, a kind of spur of the moment, literally last minute thing, just grabbing you out of BCON LA talks to do this. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
We got Jonathan Lampel here as well. And I just want to say that I had listened to I enjoyed listening to a lot of your podcast episodes.
It was forced.
And you did a great job.
Thank you.
I know it's on hiatus, I guess, but you did a great job. And I think you got a skill for that. So I wanted to say that since we're on a podcast.
Thank you.
To get started, kind of fun, I noticed that I think you got started around 2003 with computer graphics. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Which is the same year I got started. And I had some specific inspirations from around that time, and I wonder if any of our core inspirations cross. So for me, it was the Matrix sequels, Lord of the Rings, Halo 2. Any of those influence you?
Matrix sequels, not so much Lord of the Rings, Halo, but I had, I guess it was... not Call of Duty. What was the big game that everyone was modding? CSGO? Or CS?
Yes.
Counter-Strike.
Yes.
There was like a mod that you could put like the Matrix skin on. There was like a Matrix version with like slow-mo and stuff. So I would film videos in that, like little animatics, the character running and jumping through the glass and going out the window. I'd spend just weeks trying to sync these up. I had like a LAN set up because my parents had like 3 computers and I had to have this computer here recording, and then this one is the character, and then this one's the other character. And after, my sister was like, all right, push the button now, go. And then we would like record.
No way.
Yeah.
Quite the process.
Quite the process. And then I guess like a couple of years later, I must have fallen into Blender.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I probably know the answer. I feel like I've heard you answer this before, but was Blender the first 3D app you got into?
It was, basically. I think actually, because I used to play a game called Tribes, and they had a competition once where you like design a skin and win something, and they wanted you to use a program called 3ds Max. So I downloaded it, and then I'm like, what the hell is this? Can't do anything. I like closed it. And then, but at a time, I think it must have been maybe a year later, I was trying to look for 3D software because I used Flash.
Yeah.
Macromedia Flash.
Man, takes me back.
Making those little stick figure death animations that all the high schoolers made.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. Love those. And then I was like, 3D is where it's at. I want to make something 3D because, Pixar was big, Toy Story was, I'm like, I want to make something 3D. And I Googled before Google, so it was like using MSN or something. I typed in like free 3D software. I found a program called Animator, and it had 8 in the name. Animator.
Yes.
Horrible. Again, similar experience. Opened it. No, what the hell's going on? Close it. And then actually, that was the thing I forgot. The key thing that got me into 3D, or that I wanted to start, was I played Need for Speed.
Yeah.
And just loved cars. And I remember looking at one on a turntable, right? And like on the car selection screen, it's right here. Right. It's right in front of me. And it feels like it's mine. I'm like, I want to make my own car in whatever this is, like a 3D software. Yeah. So that was the journey. And so then I was on the image search or whatever for free 3D software. And there was a red sports car, and it was hosted on blender.org. Yeah. And then I landed there and found Blender, and I'm like, And I figured since it's a little random piece of software, they're not teaching it in school. Obviously, people are learning it themselves. And if other people could learn it, then I should also be able to learn it by myself. And then I could make my own red sports car. And it took 4 years. But
you made that red sports car.
But I made a red sports car. And that was it. Yeah.
Man. Congrats, by the way. Almost 3 million subscribers on
YouTube,
right?
Yeah, I think so.
Blender Guru. That's a pretty incredible accomplishment.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. questions for you, but I
Got a
remember
list
that
of
one.
questions. Came prepared.
It is fun to hear about the Matrix animations because you were also talking about animating Matrix characters in 3ds Max as like your
Yes,
start.
that was my very first project. I was to make a Matrix short, and I took these slides out. It was part of my presentation for tomorrow, but I took them out because time. And but I went back and found a scene. Okay, so it started as a 2003 Max file, exported into FBX in 2013, and I imported it into Blender in 2024. So much was lost in translation. Like it was absolute trash. But I was impressed that 3D data made it, through that path. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, Matrix was a big inspiration for me.
Yeah.
Can you tell me something you're excited about for Blender Guru coming up? Do you have any plans that are exciting you?
Well, yeah, I was just telling Jonathan before, potentially making a course.
Whoa, it's been a little while. Other
very
than the
long
donut.
Yeah. So I've made 2 courses previously, Nature Academy and the Architecture Academy, back in like 2010, 11, something like that. Really long ago.
Legendary pieces of
Thank you.
content.
Oh, thank
That's when
you.
I was getting into the Blender community and met you at
Really?
SIGGRAPH around
Yeah,
2013.
yeah. Okay.
That was a big deal.
Yeah. So I've been YouTube ever since, and then like Polygon, you drive people to Polygon, and that's your source of revenue. But what I'm learning is over the years is like, actually beginners don't need a lot of assets. Like they don't need models, they need some textures, but like they don't need a lot of stuff. They're in the learning phase. So they want to learn to model. They want to learn to create the result, but they don't need 20 assets per month in a subscription. So the vast pie of my subscribers, right? The number of people that need assets to a point that you'd have a Polygon subscription is like a little dot, right? So it's like, it's tiny. But the number of people who want a Blender course, I mean, you tell me, you guys, see your cookie, right?
A lot of people like those, yeah.
A lot of people want courses, so yeah.
I mean, what is that? That's interesting because the beginners don't want it done for them so much.
Exactly. They don't want to download a chair. They want to be taught how to make a chair.
Whoa.
Yeah. Whoa. So it's something I'm just slowly realizing is like, yeah, there's probably if you want to make something that people enjoy and they want, you should probably just make that.
Right.
Yeah. Which is basically like this thing that we've been building for 9 years. Like, oh, maybe that's not the focus. I don't know. Or maybe it's not the product that I should have built. I don't know.
Interesting.
But the downside also of training, though, as you know, goes out of date really quick, especially with Blender.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's a topic I do want to ask you about.
Oh, yeah?
So that kind of segues into the donut tutorial, which I overheard you telling Lampel before we started. This is the 4th iteration.
The 4th one.
I didn't realize it was that many.
Yeah. So there's one for every version. So I did 2.5. 2.5, 2.8, 3, and 4.
So how do you decide? I guess, are those the main releases? Because
those are the key ones. Yeah.
Those are the key ones. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you find that viewership, tanks on your previous iterations?
No. Actually, no. Annoyingly, no.
Annoyingly, okay.
Because they're still watching the old one in made for 3.0 or something. So I unlist the previous 2.
Yeah.
So I'll leave the last one up.
Yeah.
But I'm I put it in the pinned comment. I put it in the top of the thing. You're watching an old version. You're watching an old version. And still for months, it's getting more views than the others.
Getting more.
Yeah, more. And it's because it's ranking still for YouTube. So people type in Blender beginner tutorial. It still ranks the old one.
Okay.
I'm come on, guys.
This is so interesting because in our community, someone mentioned in a live stream or something, they were recommending the donut tutorial.
Okay.
Someone was new, but they specifically recommended the previous version, not the newest one.
How about that?
Yeah, so I thought that touches on this topic that,
Kent is very passionate about.
Okay, take it down a little bit. So this idea of updating courses, right? Because maybe you can answer this as re-recording the donut. Was anything substantially different about the workflow, or were you essentially teaching the exact same thing with a new coat of paint being Blender's UI?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is also you make it better. Every version is better than the last one.
True.
And so part of it is this could be done faster. You sort of you look at the old videos, you can see where people were dropping off. You can see the comments where people were just all hitting the same problem. And you're okay, I got to make this part slower. I've got to, try and figure out some ways to fix it. So it's part of it is like you want to make it better the next time anyway. But there is definitely always something big, I think, that's changed. And actually, annoyingly, like the last version of Blender, 4.1, yeah,
that's right.
they changed something.
Auto smooth.
I think it's partly auto smooth. There's something else, but apparently the sprinkles. People getting all messed up in the sprinkles.
That's the most important part.
I know. And that's right. The distribute points, the way that was. I think they've changed the node now, so it's not
rotation socket and all of that.
Something like yes, the rotation socket. So I've got somebody who like assists with my Discord, and he just like messages me like people having this problem, and then he's like, I think you just need to do that tutorial again. I'm like, I'm not doing it again. And then I'm like looking at it and I'm like, you probably have to do it again. Just that part.
It's kind of an endless cycle.
It is. It's like a 2 months. No, is it 3 months? It says 4 a year.
Yeah.
So it's 3 months.
Yeah.
You get 3 months before it's going to change. I don't like it, but the alternative is you just never change.
Well, there is an alternative in my opinion. I don't have you sold on the idea, but what if the suggestion is just use the version it was recorded with?
That could be part of it, yeah.
Now, that doesn't last necessarily forever, but in my experience, computer graphics has not changed that much in 20 years. Geometry nodes is a substantial shift. It can change the game. Houdini's been doing that a long time. Just changes like the fundamental interface with how you do computer graphics. But pushing and pulling verts, texture painting, the tools have gotten better, but the fundamental processes are not that different.
It's true. Yeah. They could get 4.0 and use that instead.
But it's so unnatural to do that for anybody. And
especially when I said go to the homepage and hit download. So they always get the latest version.
The biggest button is the latest version.
Yeah.
What we're toying with on our site, because it's faceted, right? Because you might look like a lazy creator, right? Well, you just don't want to re-record courses. But we get those requests all the time. And we aim to keep our fundamental courses as like the artery of the library. If you keep those updated with the latest version, then there's more grace for the other ones that are more advanced and take longer to produce. But if, like we always say which version it was recorded with, and if we add like a URL to the version download, make it easy for people, is there any detriment to someone in 2024 learning from, I'll just say like, this was relevant because of Gleb and 80 just like lowered the price of their robot course, right? Remember their Robo, which I think is kind of an iconic course in the broader, library of Blender as a whole. And to remove that almost feels like you're burning a book, right? And so like, what is the detriment of someone going back to even 2.7, learning the art of computer graphics in the context of hard surface modeling? Like what you learn then with an old version of Blender, you're still creating the cool thing. You're not giving that up. And I guess what it could produce in learners is this Blender fluidity. Like even when a new version is released, which everyone has to deal with getting used to that new version, like we don't have training created immediately. You're actually, if you depend on the new version, the options for courses dwindles down to almost nothing, right? Yeah. And so it would just promote this idea of being Blender fluid, and I can use any version and I get the job done kind of thing. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I feel like there's a perception in software that you always get the new version, but nothing updates as fast as Blender. And so it creates some of these, not problems, but distractions.
Yeah, it's true. But I also get it because it's like, I mean, when I'm looking at an After Effects tutorial or something on how to do something, it's like, I'm not going to click on the one that's 3 years old because I'm using the version that's the latest one. Sure. Now, could I get the old version just to follow it? Sure, I could, but I'm using this one. And you know that eventually you're going to have to upload. Like, if the robot course is 2.7, I wouldn't necessarily think it would be a fun experience to, like, learn Blender twice, like once in 2.7 so that you can figure out where all the buttons or how this works, whatever. And then once you finish that course, you join a studio or even just you want faster renders because the latest version is way faster than the previous ones. True. You need a new feature. You need geometry nodes, right? You're going to have to get the latest version eventually. Yeah. So then you have to go relearn it. So it's like, I get it. I mean, the way I just tell people is like, you can do most of it. Mm-hmm. You will have some issues.
Yeah.
If you're using a newer version.
Yeah.
Some things might change, but you know, it's a free education. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if you talk to Pablo, he'll say it's just use the LTS version because that's their intent, right? Is they want people that are, you know, making big projects or things that take a long time,
Right.
use an LTS version because they were 2 years and they have bug fixes in that time as well. So you could make a course that is for 4.3 is going to be the next one in a few months. And then that should be good for 2 years.
Right.
You just have to tell everyone this course is made with the LTS version.
Yeah.
That means it's going to be very stable. It's going to be proficient. It's going to, you know, yada, yada, yada. But it's not going to have like the new rigging and animation tools, right?
Right.
It's going to be in 4.4. Or is it 5?
I don't keep up with it.
I don't know.
Something like that. But that's so hard. I also can't get myself to record with an LTS because unless it just came out, then you're recording with something that's already out of date.
It's old.
And
Yeah.
And if you know changes are coming
Right.
in the next version, that's
But then how do
already
you
out.
update a video in a course?
It's not easily. I think the easiest thing to do is if the course specifically touches on auto smooth, either record a clip or you put some sort of disclaimer on that video. For us, like we're thinking of how it is on our website, and you could put like something in red that's like, by the way, this has changed. Maybe that does it. I don't think it eliminates the questions.
It's true. But I think also, look, people get it. You're using software, and software never stops growing.
Yeah.
It shouldn't, right?
Right.
And so you just know over time. Like, I think actually most of the people that are complaining or going and remake the video, they're just very new at computers, I think.
Oh, interesting.
Like, well, and like that, most people get it that like it's always greatest to watch a tutorial that just came out related to that task, and there's just a dwindling shelf life over time.
Yeah.
And that's just how education in software comes.
Yeah.
So, you know, if they're following a Blender cookie course, I would expect if I'm following a course like that, our versions are not going to be aligned.
Yeah.
What you do have to make clear, though, is what version you are using.
Yeah.
I did some user interviews with beginners just to learn what beginners think.
Cool.
And, like, that was a big pain point a lot of people have is, like, they don't know what version it is. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Like, you don't even mention it sometimes at the start, what version I'm using.
They don't know to look in the bottom right corner?
No, it's not like, because again, we've been using Blender for 10 years, but like, where is that on Premiere or like another tool that I use? I couldn't tell you because I don't use them that often. So like, they just come into Blender and they're following something and then they get to this step and they go, that button's not there.
Right.
And that's really frustrating for people. So making it clear what version it is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then most people are pretty fine if they just go, this is an old version.
Right.
And if I'm using the newer version than what this was recorded with, that's on me. But it does mean that a course that you make does have a shelf life because obviously less people are going to buy it 2 years after the fact if it's not updated.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Just how it is.
That is just how it is.
Just how it is.
Changing subjects. Sure. I wanted to say, like, you're legendary in this community. You've been doing computer graphics for over 20 years at this point, and you're well established in the pantheon of Blender. So people are well aware of your successes. I think we've seen those. But I wonder what you might feel have been failures or things that disappointed.
NFTs?
I forgot about that.
Oh,
yeah.
the
big
donut
NFT.
The donut NFT. Yeah.
Tell me about that, yeah.
Well, that was a big thing. Like, I mean, for one, I came like 2 months late to the party. Right, as it like crashed, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is like all corrupt," and everyone's scamming each other, and like, "Boo, NFTs, boo!" And I'm like working in the background, I'm like, "Shit, I got to release this thing." But it was, for those who don't know, I did this project where I said, "Hey, everyone who's made a donut with my tutorial, send it to me." That was my first mistake. I said, "Send me the blend file."
Ooh, yeah.
And then we will render it to the correct specifications. And so Patrick Crawford, who works for me, is actually here.
Yeah.
He built this add-on which like went through 19,000 files and was able to identify what is the donut, the icing, the thing, have the correct, put that at the, because everyone's got different scale. People, I told them to delete the cup. I told them to delete the plate. They left it in there. I know who you are. You're on the list. And got rid of all that, rendered it out. That was a nightmare. So then rendered out each 19,000 donuts. And then I had to learn this other piece of software, Mosaicify, I think it was called. There's no good software for making mosaics, I've discovered. They're all, there's a lot of software.
Right.
But there's only one which actually I think does it legit, which is the one I use.
Yeah.
Super old, archaic interface. Crazy. But like all of them, like if you look at mosaic software, if you want to have little photos become pixels in a big photo,
Right.
what they do is they all just tint it. So they go like, oh, that red pixel on that thing, we'll just use a fucking photo of a blue flower and we'll just tint it red. And then it's like, that's not the whole point of this. So they're all doing a dodgy version of it. But this one software did it. Very hard to use and figure out, but that took weeks. And I made this big mosaic, so this giant image that was, I think, 20,000 by 20,000 pixels. And each one of those, like, little points, if you zoom right in there, which you can do on the website, because we use this other builder so that you can actually, it like loads in as you zoom in and stuff. And you can see all the donuts up close. It's really cool. So we set that up, didn't sell.
Didn't sell at all?
No. Well, because the thing is to recoup it, like I'm like, all right, we'll put like 6 ETH on it as a bidding price. No one bid. And I suddenly realized that obviously, like the people that are speculative, making these big bids, that's all you hear about on the news, these massive prices. They're not 3D artists. They're like the Rockefellers, the Gettys, these massive funds of money.
Right.
And they don't know they're not 3D artists. So like, of course, a lot of people wanted to participate. They were hoping it was a success. Right. And then there's just no money behind it. So what I should have done, realizing in hindsight, was made it so that each individual donut you could buy, one of ones. Didn't do that. And then you could have had like 17,000 people even giving $1 each, to get a donut. That would have been something. But anyway, it didn't work. It's still for sale. Maybe it'll sell one day.
Yeah.
But then I also, as a side project, made a baker's dozen. So it was 13 donuts that were one of ones. I art directed them, and then I had a few other people help setting them up. And those were like 4K animations of like the donut spinning around on a turntable. There was like a diamond one, a holograph one. There was all these ones.
That's cool.
Those all sold. Oh. And then I also sold my OG one, the original donut. And those all sold. Those all went to the Blender Foundation. So that was the thing, by the way. For those who are angrily typing in the comments, how could you, Andrew? It was to raise money for Blender. Dadgummit. So I gave the money, all of the money that those baker's dozens sold for, because the other one didn't sell, but I gave it all to Blender. So that was, at the time, I think it was like $18,000, something like that.
That's great.
Which is something.
Change.
I just wanted to experiment with it, but people hate my stance on NFTs. I think it's a cool technology. I think it's very cool. The only problem is that the great thing about it and the worst thing about it is there's so much opportunity. So it attracts people that, are building cool things and they want to, have a little break out of the studio space. They could make money by making interesting things that don't exist because you can't sell to a market of 10 people that like your thing.
Right.
You have to sell at scale. So all media, all art right now that everybody has to make has to be something that the algorithm will like. So it has to be some popular thing or something, whatever. But like the cool thing I saw about NFTs was that for the first time ever, you could have that. You had people that could make really weird, obscure stuff that was honestly like within a month of just browsing and seeing what people were creating was more imaginative and creative than like the last 10 years of things I'd seen on forums.
Oh, wow.
Right? Because
everyone's about the same.
Yeah,
every
right?
day.
Yeah. And so I was really excited for it because it's like, it's actually potentially, if you had that, you would really get unique art because you can see it.
Yeah.
Like not most of it on OpenSea and all that, like PFPs. And that was the problem. The branding just crushed under the weight of scams and low effort, shitty coins. And it was horrible. So then nobody wanted to make art and then it's just kind of collapsed. But I really do think it is cool.
Yeah.
Because for people that love it and love an artist and they want to collect it, not to speculate, not to make profit, which I think is the big misunderstanding, to really like something because you like it, that I think is really exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like the way you describe it that way. Do you think in like, I forget what they call the hype cycle, there's a name attached to it, right? Do you think that we're in the lull and it's going to come back up?
I don't know.
Yeah, no.
I don't. I mean, it might just die.
It might.
The people who are really into NFTs, like, it's never gonna die. These collectibles are good forever. And I'm like, well, maybe.
I could maybe see it a little bit because one of the excitements that everybody was hoping for was 3D NFTs that you could take between different games and all of that.
Yeah, that's
not understanding that the interoperability between these things, just you can't just put something from one game engine into another. And that's also something I was talking to Patrick actually earlier about, was how to get your assets into all these different apps and when they update and all of that. It seems like quite a task for Polygon, especially.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it's too much work. That's maybe the other failure, was like trying to create a model library that could be interoperable. Like you could have it. So we didn't just make like FBXs and give you texture files at Polygon for our models. We gave you native files. So there was a blend file, but there's also a max Redshift file.
I didn't know that.
There's also a max Octane file, max whatever. So there is about, for every single model, there's 15 different formats.
Right.
A stupidly dumb idea, because it's like, how do you support that? How can you possibly QA it so that every model has been checked and it works? And it's a nightmare of a job. We didn't realize going into it how big of a mammoth job that would be. Really, the smartest thing to do would be just give people FBXs or a blend file. Since Blend is free, you can just have them open that. Or do it plugin based. So it's like the plugin, just you point the plugin to the folder you downloaded your FBX thing, which is actually how they work now. So we give people the native files on the website so that you can download it. But if you use a plugin, it will actually just read the FBX and get all the texture files and then form it on the fly, bring it in. Which is how it should be. That's the smart way to do it. But yeah, models is challenging one.
Okay. Now, are Blender users your main demographic on Polygon?
Yeah, by about, I think it's like 60%, 60% of people are Blender users, and the rest is other softwares.
Other software. Okay.
Max is pretty big.
I mean, I feel like it is definitely a problem in terms of like operation, but like it adds a certain value to the product, or having all those tested file formats for various software.
Yes, but the other problem is how do you market to those people? Because how do they know that you exist? So you then have to hopefully have a lot of money and capital that you can then invest in marketing to tell people, hey, Max users, if you want Max models, come to Polygon.
Right.
But if you can't do that, and then do it not just for Max, but for Cinema 4D, and then for Maya, for Blender, and for SketchUp, and for Unreal Engine, and for, like, I don't think people realize how fragmented the 3D community is. We do this, so we do like user interviews. You just find someone in your database and go like, hey, you want to jump on a call? And you just talk to them, right? And every call, I'm like, so where do you go to get like tree models? And they're like, I use this thing. And I'm like, do you like that thing? I'm like, no, I hate it. I'm like, why do you use it? They go, I don't know where else to get trees. I'm like, what about this website? It's called Max Tree. And I'm like, never heard of it. And I go, oh, what about this one? There's another website that sells trees. Oh, never heard of that one. And they're like writing it down. And then I'm asking them, where do you get your furniture models? And then they mention this like other website, Dali is something art website. And I'm like, what the heck is that? So we've got a Notion page called Competitors and Adjacent Businesses of asset libraries. Oh, wow. And we just add another entry like every day. It's so long. There are so many asset libraries out there. It would blow your mind.
That's wild.
And they're all doing the same thing. Everyone's building. They're all like, I got a great idea. Let's make an asset library. So like, they're all struggling because how do you market? How do you say, I've got a library for that?
Right.
And that's the other thing. You have to have a niche. You can't just, there's no way you can single-handedly create all the models people need. So you have to have a niche and you have to stick to it. And then it's like, marketing is the biggest problem. If I didn't have the YouTube channel, Polygon wouldn't exist. It's just, there's no other way to market it. Yeah.
When you put it like that, it's kind of impressive that 50% is other software.
It is actually. It's remarkable. I think it must be just a fluke because ArchViz is not really Blender. Like, and that's what Polygon is primarily. We make a lot of like man-made materials, tile, carpet, that kind of thing, which you can't get on other websites. So I think just through like sheer frustration, not being able to find certain textures that ArchViz people need. I think just word of mouth spread and like all the people, because ArchViz is primarily 3ds Max.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think just word of mouth just spread that way.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I'm glad you brought up the academies because, again, those are, I think, in the pantheon of great Blender
crazy.
education. Absolutely. But I can't remember which one was out. It was Nature First, right? And then
Nature Academy. Yep.
and so in 2013, I can't remember which one was out, but I remember meeting you and asking you about it, and you just had described it as it's been successful. And then they didn't happen anymore. I wanted to ask, like, why not? Why didn't you?
Why not
perpetuate
another
them?
course? Yeah. I mean, I think it was actually okay. A bit of a dark story. No, okay, but like where it really came from was. Do you remember, like, back in the day, I said Blender's user interface is broken.
2.5, right?
Yeah.
You gave a presentation on it.
I gave a presentation.
I remember those days.
I did a 3-part series on YouTube, and then I did to cap it off, I did a Blender conference presentation.
How it could have a ribbon like Microsoft Word.
Yes. I had the ribbon at the top, which people were like, how dare you? Yeah. The ribbon, I think, won over, by the way. It's in every software pack. Anyways. But... But the thing is, okay, so in that conference, I was young. I didn't know how to, like, delicately, like, understand the politics of things. I just thought, like, what makes sense? And, like, the one thing that just drove me nuts was right-click,
Yeah,
right?
right-click
I'm like,
click.
it doesn't make any sense to have that. It's not even consistent within the software because you click on buttons with left-click, but you click on objects with right click, and then not even everything, because then, like, the timeline was right click or no, left click drag, but like certain parts were wrong. It just wasn't, even the arguments people were making didn't make sense. I'm like, this is dumb. And then I did a survey of my audience, and I was like, what should it be? Should we switch to left click? What do you guys think? And I think it was like 90% said yes, let's make left click select.
Oh, wow.
And then I went to the Blender conference, and then I think I won't say I was talking, but I was talking to a developer, and I was like, "Come on, man! Like, what do we do? How do we make this happen?" And he was like, "Look, man, I agree with you, but the politics, just like, I don't. The other developers, they're just pushing against it. There's too much friction. I just don't think it's going to happen." And at that moment, I thought, "Oh no! I've put all my eggs in the Blender basket with Blender Guru." That was the motivation to start Poliigon. So I think it was stepping away, or like realizing, like, I can't put all my bets on Blender when I thought they were making clearly the wrong decision.
Oh, wow.
It did work. Like, they came around. It changed.
It did.
I don't think for me, by the way, it was William Rainish. He is the man. He is an unsung hero. No one knows who he is, except for people really into Blender. But he single-handedly, as far as I know, just basically worked at the Institute for like a couple of years and just actively fought with every developer and just pushed things over the line bit by bit and just radically changed it. So that's why 2.8 is what it is. And everyone was like, oh my God, Blender's, like, I can start using this now.
Oh.
Why is this one so much better? And it's like, yeah, because this dude just... got rid of all the crap and just threw it out and went, we've got to start being consistent with industry standards.
And you don't think you influenced him? Your talk influenced him at all?
No, I mean, maybe it like kicked open the door and then people were like, I guess user interface might be a thing. But his experience in it, his background in it, and his willingness to work on it, I think he's exited. He's not involved in Blender anymore. Maybe it was a traumatic experience for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, without him, I think Blender would have a fraction of the user base today.
Oh, wow.
Because so many people picked up Blender from 2.8. And if you ask them, a lot of people said it was not their first time trying Blender. Their first time was 2.5 or 2.49 or whatever.
Right.
And they always said it just felt wrong. It felt weird. Just everything was difficult. But 2.8 just felt right. And it's like, it's the interface, the onboarding experience of opening up a piece of software and not being able to click on something.
Yeah.
Just a single thing.
Yep.
You know, it's massive. So you just think of, like, you know, the funnel, right? You finally got someone's attention.
Yeah.
And they've tried out your software for the first time.
Right.
And then how do you treat them? Right? It's like, it's important. They have to get some sort of traction and feel comfort of some level to be willing to put in the effort to keep learning. And I think it was discounted for a really long time.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy that it is what it is.
It's a good point. I remember I've heard it a lot from people, particularly from like more experienced side of things, when I would pitch them on Blender and they start left clicking in the viewport and I just move that cursor around.
Yeah.
Like you can't do anything until you look up what is happening.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a really good point.
And there's also, I mean, that's just like one thing to know because it's so obvious, but it's also like hotkeys. Everything was hotkey based in Blender. And people were like, but hotkeys are great because you can move so much faster. And it's true. We don't want to get rid of the hotkeys because it's like, yeah, you can get things done way faster. But to have to look up a hotkey for everything, absolutely everything, it's super demanding of a new person who's just starting out. You haven't built up that level of, trust or willingness yet. So you have to give them something. And so the widget, what's it even called? The manipulator, yeah. The gizmo, whatever it's called.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, with the thing. So like, I never use it. I'm sure you guys don't use it. But new people, when they just start opening Blender up, it's great to have that there. And then once you've learned the hotkeys, turn it off.
Yeah. Wayne Dixon does our animation stuff. He still uses it. So every time he sends me a file, I'm like, get this thing out of here. What is this?
I turn it on and off. I use it.
You use it too?
For modeling, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. Don't be really
Nothing wrong with that. So your academies, how does that tie back in to the academies? Like you didn't do the academies anymore.
Oh, yeah. Because I wanted to do something which was going to apply to the entire 3D market, not just Blender specific. And I thought, I can't just keep making courses for Blender because I feel like Blender's on its way out.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Okay. I had assumed or thought that it was just too much work as like a project, and that's why you didn't go back to it.
No, I don't think so. I think starting an asset library is way more work.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
My impression of Poliigon, I don't know if I heard you say this or heard someone else, but that, you had been grinding on the YouTube channel for years and years and years, and that's plenty successful, but the kind of success you've experienced from Poliigon, like, surpassed it very quickly. So I thought it was...
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, it's very lucrative.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like, the money that the YouTube channel makes is like a drop in the ocean.
Gotcha.
Compared to Poliigon. But compared to a paid course, I don't know. Probably, if I had just stuck making paid courses, probably earning way more.
How did the courses the academies do versus the Rock Essentials, Grass Essentials? Like, is that a apples to apples
that's an interesting
comparison?
one. Yeah, that's right. Because between there, I had so I did Nature Academy,
You had the lighting.
Architecture Academy. Yes, I had Pro Lighting Skies, Pro Lighting Studio. So these were like paid little add-ons, which were just like asset packs. And then Grass Essentials and Rock Essentials. And these were just little packs of assets that worked with Blender. That was also part of the decision because I could see that assets, you could make something, a model, and yes, it works in one piece of software, but you could also make it for another. So we had some people discovered Rock Essentials and they were like, hey, can you sell me a version that'll work in 3ds Max? There wasn't many, probably like 3 or 4, but I kind of went, So maybe there's a way to like branch out and do something which is applicable to the whole 3D space.
Right.
Not realizing that you also have to market to those people. And how do you market? Well, the only way I know to market is to make a YouTube channel and make tutorials for it. But you can't do that for 4 pieces of software. So yeah, it's an understated challenge is marketing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I heard somewhere. Is that your degree? Is it your background's in marketing?
No, I did like some internet marketing courses.
Oh,
like my dad bought it for me as like a Christmas present, like out of high school.
Yeah,
and that was just like right before the year after I had started making tutorials on YouTube.
Right.
He sent me to this like internet guru marketing, selling products on the internet because that was a novel idea.
Huh.
Like you had to be explained that you can sell things online. People enter in their credit card and then they get a digital file and you can sell them all day. And you just keep making money. And I was like, what? That's crazy. So he kind of explained how you do it. You have a funnel, this kind of thing. So I learned a lot of like the first steps of marketing from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So, but
From the internet guru.
Yeah. Does that inspire?
I don't know. He wasn't called the internet guy. No. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so you mentioned your dad, and I guess that you moved to LA recently. Kind of left your home country, your family, your extended family. Can I ask, like, what has brought you to LA?
Yeah, because because I come here like once a year.
Okay.
Because I'll come for a conference, SIGGRAPH, or something like that. And then while I'm here, I just have like meetings, like meet up with Colin, or meet up with this person. This person works at Netflix, or this person, and I have coffee, right? Like, let's just go have coffee, and we just chat. And then I come away with like 3 pages of notes. And it just like, I learned so much more in like one meeting than I would 3 months back home on the internet. You know?
Wow.
And so I'm like, I should be living here. So for years, I've always said like, I want to move to LA because I know it would just be so much, you'd learn so much faster.
Yeah.
And it was just like, could never do it. Actually, the year we were going to do it was 2020.
Okay.
And then COVID.
The world shut down. Yeah.
That's right. So I put that on pause. But yeah. So now I'm finally here. Yeah.
Wow. And like, you moved your family over too. So that transition, is that going well?
2 kids. Yep.
2 kids across the country, like, or from country to country.
Yeah, it's stressful.
Okay.
I can see why people just don't move. Like, clearly, it makes a lot more sense to just live where you grow up.
Right.
Because it's such, it's like, I have to get a driver's license again. I have to go do a driver's license test in California. I'm like, wait a minute. Why can't I just use my Australian one?
Good enough over there.
And they're like, no, even people out of state in America have to get a California driver's license.
Right.
I'm like, this is stupid. So I'm like, I have to study a driver's handbook that I haven't touched. You know, I'm like, I did this 20 years ago. Come on. Anyway.
Oh, that's such a weird thing.
It's everything. It's like, it's that. I got to get a social security number. I got to learn the visa. Like, I don't know. All the immigrants listening are like, yes, exactly. See? It's hard.
Oh, my word. Well, I mean, it's a blast thinking that you're in our country. You know, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Welcome, I guess.
Thanks.
Yeah. So when you say you meet up with someone from Netflix, how do you get a meeting without, I have a project to pitch you or something?
Oh, yeah. So it's people that I already know.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's like friends or, so-and-so introduced me at some point, and it's just sitting down and just meeting in that sense. Yeah.
If I'm taking anything away from this, from like a business standpoint, it's like just hopping on a call with a member or like someone who follows you, like, and asking them questions. Like, that's brilliant.
Yeah. User interviews.
Yeah.
It's
brilliant. Or just coffee with a connection.
Yeah.
Right? And what you learn from that.
Yes. Yeah. It's huge.
That's next level.
Yeah.
Well, how long are we doing this? 44 minutes. Let's see if I have any other bangers. Okay. A little bit going back to, I thought you mentioned earlier that you toyed with the idea of doing a course.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. Like, that's like reviving.
Stealing real estate from CG Cookie.
Those were some good days when like we were competitors, right?
Right.
And, yeah, it's been different since Polygon.
Yeah.
We need somebody,
some competition.
Like you.
Yeah, so the course, it's basically, my thought is just for beginners, basically.
Okay.
Complete beginners, because you can't teach much in a donut tutorial. A lot of what you need to know to get started is modeling. That's the key thing people want to learn.
Right.
There's almost nothing taught in the donut tutorial that's modeling. So that would be like a key focus. But the biggest one people have is like, they just don't know what is the right way to do something. There's like hundreds of different ways of building this lamp here.
Yeah.
And people get confused. They're like, should I be using geometry nodes? Should I be doing this? Like, what is this for? What is this for? And we've been in it for so long that we just take it for granted that, like, no, this is for this, and this is how you do this. And there's trade-offs with everything. And some people prefer this method. Some people prefer this method. But that all has to be explained. So all that stuff, basically, walking through it. But trying to do it also in a way which is building something practical, not just theory. Like, this tool does this. And so a practical demonstration, basically like, what the donut tutorial is. It's practical, but you're learning tools as you go. Yeah. Trying to do that, but in a much more comprehensive way to teach you a lot more so that you could get started in a lot of places after that. Wow. But also I'm like looking at it, I'm like, oh man, this has to be a very long course then. I'm like, I don't know about this.
Define long course. How many hours?
Oh, I don't know. Like, I mean, I was thinking of making it like a street scene, like a kind of stylized street, and trying to have like a different shape with a different challenge, right? So you've got like cylindrical objects, you've got like objects with bevels, You've got objects with like curls, right? So you can use the curve tool. So I'm gonna have like maybe some rope, and then trees. Everyone needs to learn trees
from scratch.
And I was looking at it, I'm like, I can't teach trees. I'm like, no one's gonna learn trees. And then every single person was like, I need to learn to make trees. And I'm like, all right, you guess you should learn to make trees. But like maybe that's a point for geometry nerds. Is you do a little geometry nerds tree part or something. But like trying to do so like every little tool would get touched and trying to explain the different ways to build each of the objects we're building and why this way might be good. But it's super to build something comprehensive that is like a whole overview is just very long, very daunting.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. We found out
big task. Yeah.
So what are the lengths of your courses?
It kind of varies.
Yeah, we have some different thoughts on this.
I mean, how long's human?
So human was 28 hours.
Oof, damn.
But that was my exploration into what I feel like a trend is maybe, you hear about like tentpole movies, like massive blockbuster movies and how they kind of hold up a lot of the studios, and thinking like I'm seeing that with like the Robo course I mentioned from Gleb and 80 and their space VFX. And then you look at how often they're releasing, and it's like 2-3 years in between these releases. And it's like, that makes sense. You spend years making a course, and like you get the visuals that are no one's seen before. Like, this is incredible. And so you sell it based on, like the dream that people have getting into, I want to build these big worlds or, do these incredible things. So I'm more on that boat of like, I enjoy making, aiming for blockbuster type courses for the past since human, that was successful. And I still am kind of on that. But, you, for example, I don't think that floats your boat as much as, more smaller courses, right?
For the most part. I mean, I'd like to do something like that at some point.
We'll talk.
But
So you might almost knock your water bottle on
Thank
the
you.
electronics
Oh,
panel.
man, Kyle would. Imagine he ships that here, just out of the kindness of his heart, and then I ruin it. Oh, man. So a beginner-oriented course. I don't know if you relate at all to, you should be smart and say you don't, but beginner courses have become harder for me, the more I go. Not because, I think it's several things. I think the further I get into my journey, the further away I get from relating to a beginner. It becomes distant memories of like, oh, I remember that. But like being able to get into their shoes gets harder and harder. And also it's tied into like, but this beginner course that's 3 years old, I know it's an old version, but it's still relevant. I would teach it the same way. And so it's several things that make beginner courses a challenge for me compared to like a tentpole course that I can sink my teeth into what I'm passionate about. And some people have told me that I've considered one of my greatest compliments is like, your passion for this comes through the course and like transfers to me. And that's what I want to teach. And I can't, it's hard to do that with a beginner's course, for example. So I wanted to ask you, is it difficult teaching beginner content at your stage in your journey?
Right, like it's kind of like boring.
If I were to make a beginner's course, I think I would do it for like business reasons only. Like that's obviously the biggest demographic, and that is not quite what I'm passionate about compared to the pretty thing.
It's true. I mean, it's definitely more fun to do the thing where you feel like you're learning a lot, but I don't want to do something that's already been done. And I feel, I don't know, just sort of like learning grassroots what people are struggling with as they're just beginning the software and the questions they have. It is it's a challenge to figure out what does that curriculum look like and trying to teach something in a way that could be, actually clearly understood, because a lot of people do learn this stuff eventually, but they're just such a roundabout, zigzaggy way.
Yeah.
That's kind of the fun for me, is like, how can you structure it in a way that somebody would actually get it and not quit. So that's kind of fun for me and entertaining.
I feel guilty a little bit not sharing that perspective, as if I'm leaving them out, right? Leaving like Blender beginners out. But, with human, I was, it's the most complicated thing I've ever taught. But I was determined that beginners can still navigate it, right? Like it's not this, I guess I believe that an advanced course isn't reserved for advanced or intermediate learners. If you go about it a certain way, you can include beginners. And so I would rather teach them that way rather than like, how do you take a distinctly beginner course and make something that they're like proud of? I mean, you've proven it with the donut. I mean, people post that all the time. So like they consider that like impressive, I think, whenever for their first project.
Yeah. It is definitely hard to, what can a beginner actually learn and accomplish that won't take, 50 hours, but also is exciting and fun, and there's not a lot. Like maybe a fire hydrant is probably the most exciting. The classic where it has a lot of like modeling challenges. It's even got a little chain you could have. And it's got texture, chipped paint. You've got 2 layers of paint. It does have a lot of the core problems that you need to learn from. But it's a fire hydrant.
It's been done 1,000 times. Yeah.
But it's more to the point, like how excited is someone going to be to show their mum, their grandmother, look, I made a fire hydrant. They're going to go, that's nice.
Yeah.
But there's something about like, I don't know, the donut as just a fun, dumb thing that it's like, people just love donuts.
Yeah.
I think that's it. They just love eating donuts. And they go, that's cool. I made the thing that I like to eat.
Right.
I don't know.
Man, I mean, it's iconic at this point. And it is an interesting thought. Like, what was it about this that just, I mean, it looks like the one from The Simpsons.
I guess so.
I wonder if that's part of it, but I can't imagine. I don't know if it was the right place or right time. Probably one of the best quality tutorials when it first came out, surely. Cool. But like, it's iconic at this point. We've talked about like, can we overthrow it? What kind of thing could overthrow it? And it's you're not.
I don't think so. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
I mean, try. Why not? Competition.
I think you could say we have. What was it? The rocket. We have a course that's
the rocket.
A little simplified, like low poly
that's
world.
That's kind of fun. A rocket.
It's been successful. It's not iconic, by any stretch, but
it's also. I assume it was paid, right?
No, I don't
was it
think
free
it was.
on YouTube?
I don't remember.
It was probably, if it was free, it would have. We do both on YouTube, YouTube and site.
I think that one might have been paid. Yeah, because we have the Blender Basics, which is like starting from absolute zero.
Yeah.
Not project based.
Yeah, but there's nothing iconic about it because, like you were talking about, it's hard to have something where you're teaching the specifics of the tools and also make something that looks good. So it goes on the other side of the fence.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
For what it's worth, like, you look at the history of Blender instructors, tutorial makers, and they don't really last as long as, you've been around. I started after you, but you see them kind of fade away and do other things. And, I was reading between the lines that maybe Poliigon was where you were going, and teaching wasn't going to be, we weren't going to see any more courses. So I'm really excited that we're getting, or that it's at least in your brain about getting another.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on it because I fluctuate.
I'm going to say this is required at this point. We all will want it. There's no way it won't be successful.
Yeah.
You got to do it.
I know.
You mentioned geometry nodes. It's been around for a while. I think I'm trying to remember. I'm getting maybe I'm getting this mixed up. But you used geometry nodes on the sprinkles part. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Sprinkles.
Have you been able to adopt geometry nodes in a way that you're satisfied with?
No.
That's a quick no.
No.
Actually,
controversial opinion. I don't actually think geometry nodes is helpful to most people. Most people. Okay. The reason is, for example, at the company, it's, we need to model, something like, let's say a cabinet, right? Kitchen cabinet, right? And let's say we need to have like different styles of the trim, right? Someone on the team will go, we could use geometry nodes for this. We could build a scene where it's like, we could set it up so that you could have like different profiles and you select the drop down and it would just like automatically propagate across the thing. And you go like, yeah, or we could build it the old fashioned way in a fraction of the time.
That's a really funny example because I'm literally doing that right now.
No
working
way.
with Andrew Peel of Home Builder for his art
Andrew
phase.
Peel. Yeah.
So I'm building him a geometry node setup for literally that.
His makes sense because it's a tool, it's a software.
Right, it's flexible. But
that's the thing. Okay, so geometry nodes is powerful, it's creative. I love that it's here. It enables so much things that I've wanted to do in Blender for so long. But like for the average person, it's almost like even like in a production pipeline in a studio, you don't have time to build something in geometry nodes. Because the other thing is I think the crossover of like the sort of person that wants to do art is not the sort of person who is going to be good at geometry nodes.
This is true.
It's a completely different mindset. It's almost programming. It's a very mathematical, like just like a challenge of numbers and understanding where they go. And it's great when it's done well. But I think almost always, like if you're going to work at a studio, a big enough studio, and you're an artist, you're not going to be using geometry nodes. You're going to be, building things the old-fashioned way. There's going to be somebody on the team, or maybe a few people, but that's going to be their job. It's basically a technical director, is that kind of thing. But I would, as a caveat, there is a use for animations, right? So certain animations, like certain rigs, cars, certainly MoGraph, broadcast, that kind of thing, these like anything with like particles, that's where it really makes sense for geometry nodes. But for like procedural modeling or like, it's just such a technical thing that you could just hire one person to do it for the company and it's just done. It just doesn't, in our case at Poliigon, every time we've done geometry nodes, it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Like the cost benefit, it's nothing. It's like, it's just stupid. So now we just like recruit Arendelle if we have anything. It's just like, hey, Arendelle, can you do this? Yep. Builds it, done.
Nice.
You just go to the specialist. Yeah. And get them to do it.
Well, it might be a controversial opinion. I'm certain that it is. Not to me. I completely agree with this opinion. Oh, really? Huh. It reminds me of when I learned Python a little bit. And there was a period of maybe like 6 months where I geeked out on Python. I wrote a bunch of tools for myself that served my workflow specifically. So I feel like I had a legitimate, season of like being fairly proficient with Python, but it didn't stick long term. And because it's too much of a shift to how you interact with like your creative process for me. And geometry nodes is similar in that you see all the wizardry that people post online. Arendelle, for example, Cartesian Camel's another one. Yep. And it's like,
by the way, there's only like 5.
Yeah, there's only a few.
Crushing it on the space.
You're absolutely right. It's such a small number.
It's so tiny.
And I mean, I hope people that hear this are encouraged because like Houdini wizards have been around for a long time. They're probably not the ones sculpting cool characters. I guarantee that they're not. Yeah. Because it's such a specialized thing. Like you say, it takes a certain mind that can interact and perceive and engage and create in that way. And I guess I see people who treat it like it's just another tool, and it's absolutely not.
I sort of agree, but at the same time, you don't need to know all that to make a slightly fancier array modifier.
And that's all I've been able to do.
If you're just exactly. I need to twist this around a little bit in a circle. Great. Like, so I don't want things like that to scare people away from trying the basic 100%. Things that like making sprinkles on a donut. Like, anybody can do that.
Yes.
I have found
there are a few things. Yes.
You're right. As far as I've gotten, like create a slightly better, more customizable array or something. And that is great. I find myself just still using the modifier until they like put the presets in geometry nodes so that they're essentially replacing.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, that was kind of a rude awakening to me. I kept thinking like, am I just too old? I don't want to learn this new thing. Like I've watched courses, I've watched videos. It's not clicking with me. I don't understand vector math or whatever.
I think it's a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it's
there's been a lot of like I wanted to make one on like ice. I had like 2 guys on my team and they figured out like how to make realistic ice. I wanted it so that you could have any object and then you could assign this geometry node tool to it and it would just build what is required inside of ice to make it look realistic, which is a cloud. And then it's got little bubbles and they're kind of like stretched bubbles, like from the center, kind of like how ice forms. It just kind of builds in the middle and you get these bubbles and it's very intricate, very interesting. Sure.
Sounds very
so
cool.
It's like we built this thing that does exactly that. And it's brilliant and it's cool. And it's, 100 nodes. It's like,
too complex.
It's like, why? Who wants to follow it? Yeah. And then I realized, like, well, hang on, what's the easy, cheap, and fast way to do it the old way in like just modeling tools? And it's like, okay, you just like make a few curves, you convert them, and then you use the mesh to volume thing, and then you've just got like the bubble effect. Right. It's not non-destructive though. So it's destructive, and it doesn't work in that like click. But if you wanted to make an ice cube or an ice statue, unless you're building, this is the thing. It does make sense to learn all that stuff in that format if you were building a movie that was set in an ice world where every object was a different ice cube. Like that would make perfect sense. Or even a big commercial where you've got lots of ice shapes and things. For sure, that will actually save you time. But for most people, 99.9999% of people that need ice, they need an ice cube.
Yeah.
And I just felt bad. Like I couldn't do it. I couldn't do the tutorial. Teaching people, like, because honestly, it's like disingenuous to go like, here's how to make an ice cube thing. Because you're then misleading like a million Blender people to think like, wow, if you need to make ice, you need to learn this geometry nodes thing. It's like, no. And also, if you tried to do that in a studio, you would get fired. Like, you're not getting paid to do that. Like, just do it the cheap and dirty way. No one wants to pay for that, you know? So like, it doesn't actually feel right to teach geometry nodes for most things.
Now, did you come up with the 100 node system?
I don't know. I think it's exaggerated. Maybe it was like 50, but still it was a lot. It was a lot.
But you came up with it?
No. So this was actually Bill Barber, who's a Blender Brit.
Oh,
Yeah.
Used to work for me, and Paweł Piechezewski is a really good Blender artist from mostly the ArchViz space.
Gotcha.
But yeah, those guys. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we just threw it out. We did use it for the donut in the Baker's Dozen. One of them is an ice donut.
Oh, cool. Oh, nice.
I believe it was used in that. Anyways.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we are time, I think. So
yeah,
we'll close it up. And Andrew, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, no worries.
I want to
Thanks for putting on the BlenderCon LA. The first one.
I probably did the least amount of work in this whole thing, but yeah.
He said he did the least amount.
Like less than
We'll battle out for who did the least. But yeah, the team that put it on, incredible. I want to say for you, just I listened to podcasts that you put on and listened to a lot about you. And I think you are extremely even-keeled in a world that's very extreme one way or the other.
Oh, really?
And I really appreciate that perspective that you bring to things. I don't know if you...
Keeled.
Yeah, I mean, every time I talk to you...
I'm too extreme because I always just say the wrong thing all the time.
Maybe we're both extreme and that's why it feels even-keeled, maybe? But
maybe.
I don't know. I see you because you're in a position to field all kinds of perspectives and like have to have an opinion on something, I'm sure. And I really just appreciate whether I agree or not. I feel like you're even keeled. So.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But thank you for doing this, and maybe we'll hang out more at the conference and do it again sometime. But thank you.
Awesome.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys. Awesome.
Thanks again to Andrew Price. It probably goes without saying, but you can keep up with him at Blender Guru on YouTube. And be sure to visit Poliigon.com for all your 3D asset needs. That's Poliigon with 2 I's instead of a Y. If you're interested in leveling up your Blender skills and supporting what we do at CG Cookie, take a look at our extensive library of courses at cgcookie.com. And if you own a business or you work somewhere that's interested in onboarding Blender, visit orangeturbine.com. That's all for this episode of Denoise. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen.